Hello, I'm Shannon. Welcome back to our playthrough of Too Many Bones. We are moving into our 6th day on this adventure to defeat Gendrix. The first thing we're going to do is turn our day counter. We also need to remember that Gasket has this last battle loot stew, and we need to remove an HP from it at the start of each day. And today's encounter is Rotten Agates. Rotten Agates. No plant is quite as reliable as the agate herb. Dried or fresh, the agate offers a pick-me-up for those ill or injured. Growing in almost any climate, they require little attention once planted. But as potent as fresh agates may be, a rotten agate has a very inverse effect. Even getting too close can be lethal. We've bagged and sealed a couple for the right occasion, hanging on to them well past their expiration date. They'll be perfect against these approaching foes. Of course, if we handle them improperly, we might just drop dead on the spot. Flipping it over, we have one option, and that is death might actually be better than smelling these. Our BQ is Baddie points. We're on day 6 with 2 gear locks, that's 12. Plus, with a party of 2, we are adding 3 points. So 15 points of baddies. And at the start of the battle, we have to choose a gear lock to hold the rotten agates, placing the D6 on that gear lock. At the end of each round, rotten agates deals a number of true damage to the units at its position and all adjacent positions, with the number being equal to the current round. Gear locks holding rotten agates drop them on position when KO'd. Any gearlock adjacent to rotten agates during their movement phase may take possession of the agates. Does not cost dex. If we're successful in this encounter, we will get 1 progress, 2 training points, and a loot each. With our BQ being 15 points, that means we're making a BQ that consists of 3 5-point baddies from the top of our stack, and we haven't scouted any of these. The first baddie we will be facing is a Dragon Igniter. It has 6 HP, an initiative of 5, rolling 2 attack and 1 defense at melee, and it has 2 abilities, Weaken 1 and Engulf. Weaken 1 means its target is going to have 1 less dexterity on its next turn. And Engulf means it does its damage not only to its target, but everything adjacent to its target. So we will take our 6 HP, our lane 1 marker, and this dragon will go in this spot, setting its initiative. Next up, we have a Dragon Grounder with 7 HP and 5 initiative, rolling 3 attack and 2 defense at melee, and its ability is Weaken 2, so this dragon's target is going to have 2 less dexterity on its next turn. Our lane marker, and our 7 HP. Going in lane 2 with 5 initiative. And our third 5-point baddie is going to be this Orc Rager. So 5 HP, 3 initiative, rolling 2 attack dice at melee. And the 2 abilities here are Raiding and Rage 2. Raiding won't have an effect because it means that other orcs on the board give this orc extra attack dice. But Rage 2 means that this orc will roll 2 extra attack dice if it's not at full HP. So going into lane 3 and grabbing our 5 HP in the melee spot. This baddie having just 3 initiative. Let's go ahead and roll initiative for our gear locks. Both rolling 4 yet again. And looking at our battle mat, that is going to put them after the dragons, but before the orc. And we should place our gear locks on the board at this time as well. It's time to put our gear locks on the board, and we need to think very strategically about where we're placing them. This dragon with engulf is a bit of an issue because we don't want our gear locks near each other, uh, as engulf hits both its target and anything adjacent. The dragon also hits two targets, so we want to make sure it doesn't have the opportunity to get adjacent to both of our gear locks. So for that reason, Gasket is going to go here. That's going to force this dragon to get closer to Gasket to attack. And then by putting Tink here, we'll hopefully be able to set up a situation where this dragon is hitting Tink and a couple of the baddies at the same time. Tink's start of battle ability is to roll one of our build dice. We're going to go ahead and roll the better one, the build 2.0. And we could orient it to get our protect mode or our fifth leg and firing arm. I think we're going to orient it that way. And there are a couple of things to do with Gasket at the start of a battle as well. All of his canisters go up into his locked slots at full, so we have 10 hydro to work with. And half of his defense stat rounded up goes into his active slots, so we get to start out with 3 defense. And the last step before we start this battle, we need to put this D6 onto one of our gear locks to represent the rotten agates. I'm going to put this on Gasket. Gasket is the only one of our 2 gear locks with an ability that allows him to heal. So hopefully this won't knock Gasket out too early in the battle. And we can jump right in with round 1. And the first baddie to act is this Dragon Igniter. So it has weaken 1, which it puts on Tink. So Tink's dexterity will be down by 1 on his turn. And then attacking with 2 attack and 1 defense. The engulf ability, again, means that anything adjacent to Tink is also going to take this damage. So the dragon will actually be damaging itself as much as it will be damaging Tink. And the dragon rolls 2 hits and 2 defense. Tink has 2 defense locked from the last battle, so we will soak the hit with that. And when a baddie's hit on their turn, the order of resolution is that they get to put up their defense first and then take the 2 hits. So the dragon doesn't take any damage to its HP, but the defense is gone. Next up, we have the Dragon Grounder. It is not adjacent to a target, so it's going to move. And since Tink and Gasket are equal distance, it's going for the tiebreaker, which is the weakest, so Gasket. We could have the dragon move either here or here. We want to position it here so that it's beside Tink when Tink is taking those hits. And now rolling its 3 attack and 2 defense against Gasket. And the dragon rolls 4 hits and 2 defense. Gasket has 3 defense to block with, which means that 1 HP comes off of Gasket, and the dragon is putting up its 2 defense. And just a reminder that weaken does nothing against Gasket. Next up, it is Tink's turn. And the very first thing Tink can do on his turn is prep a bot. Again, we have the 1.0 and the 2.0. We're going to come out strong and pick our 2.0. So we will take the HP of 5. And because we have the ally add-on, we will put that chip there as well. We are not moving Tink this turn. We are going to be targeting the Dragon Igniter. And remembering that we have 1 less dexterity this turn. So with 4 dexterity to use instead of 5 this turn, we're going to use our first dexterity to turn up the battery power on this bot, so it'll hopefully have 3 activations instead of 2. And we need to save a dexterity to deploy this bot after we've rolled our dice. That gives us 2 left to spend, so we're going to go ahead and roll 2 defense dice. We're also going to use this infused incense loot, which is going to let us roll 2 attack dice in addition against that Dragon Igniter. This loot's been used, we will discard it and go roll our 2 attack, 2 defense. And Tink rolls 2 hits as well as 2 defense. The dragon is taking 2 damage from that hit. And we can take this weaken off of Tink now. And Tink still has dragon scales, so we can still go ahead and put our defense in our locked slots. We also do have 1 dexterity left to go ahead and deploy this bot. When we do that, we exhaust this build die and we can select up to 2 attachments to attach to this bot. So we'll go ahead and grab our 5th leg and our firing arm. And then this bot will go on the board. Our bot needs to be deployed either adjacent or diagonal to Tink. We will go ahead and set it here for now. Again, we don't want it beside Tink because of the engulf effect. And we don't want to put it here because then the dragon would be able to target both Tink and the bot. So setting here, we can go ahead and use an activation. We can't move this round or use attachments because those phases have passed, but we can do our 2 auto attack, and that lets us take out these 2 defense off of this dragon, opening it up for Gasket to hopefully take a good swing at it. And that's the end of Tink's turn. We are going right into Gasket's turn now. Gasket's not going to be moving and will be targeting this dragon grounder. Okay, so Gasket has 5 dexterity to work with, and of course one of those has to be our hydro valve. We are not rolling our cut ability this turn, because remember, this is going to make our target bleed as well as the unit behind it, and the unit behind the dragon right now is Tink. We don't want to do that. We do want to make sure we're getting some defense up, so we will roll 2 defense and then round out our 5 dice with our 2 attacks. And on top of that, we will go ahead and roll this directive aggro, hoping to be able to do some damage with that as well. So rolling for Gasket, we've done 3 hits, 2 defense, our hydro symbol, our move symbol, and a bone. Let's go resolve this. Very happy with those 3 hits, taking a good chunk out of this dragon here. The feat that we rolled is forcing us to move Gasket 1 space, and we'll go ahead and move Gasket up here. And resolving the rest of Gasket's roll, our hydro symbol forces us to decrease our canisters. We have a 2 defense, and we have 1 bone. And since Gasket also has those rotten agates and is potentially taking additional damage, we are going to resolve this hot fix. Hot fix lets us either increase a defense die or add a 1 defense to our active slots. And last to go this round is the Orc Rager. It's melee and needs to move 1 space to get adjacent to Tink. Rating and Rage 2 are doing nothing at the moment, so just hitting Tink with 2 attack dice. And Tink is taking 1 hit. Thankfully, Tink has some defense to block it. And that is the end of round 1. We now have to resolve the Rotten Agate effect, which is doing 1 true damage to Gasket since it's the end of round 1. And then we'll roll forward to round 2, and I'm also going to tick this forward just so we can keep track of how much HP Gasket will be losing each turn. And we do go directly into the Dragon Igniter's turn. It is going to continue to hit its target of Tink, but remembering with the engulf, any attack against Tink is going to hit everything adjacent, so we have this set up very well to roll our 2 attack and our 1 defense. But first we need to put up the weaken effect. So 2 attack and 1 defense, hitting Tink and everything adjacent. 2 hits, 2 defense. So 1 of those hits comes off of Tink's defense, and the other coming off of Tink himself. The dragon is putting up its 2 defense and then taking 2 damage, removing it. This orc is also taking 2 damage, and this dragon grounder taking 2 damage. Moving on to the dragon grounder's turn, and it is targeting the weakest unit it's adjacent to. That is going to be Tink, and putting the weaken 2 effect up. So we'll just roll this up to a 2. And attacking with 3 attack, 2 defense. Tink is over here with 4 HP, so really hoping that Tink doesn't go down on this attack, but it is possible. So we're really hoping for a weak hit here, and not too bad. 2 hits and 1 defense, and the dragon rolled 3 bones. That was lucky for us. So Tink is taking 2 HP of damage with 2 left. And this dragon is putting up a shield. Then we move directly into Tink's turn. And the very first thing that Tink can do on his turn is prep a bot, since we don't have one in the prep area. So we're going to go ahead and prep our Spider Bot 1.0. We will put our 4 HP and our ally chip out, remembering these attachments need to be kept separate because they're for the bot that's on the board. And this bot can't come out on the board unless the bot that's out is defeated. And we are going to go ahead and move Tink back to this space. That's 1 of our dexterity, remembering that we are down by 2. I'll remove this. And Tink's not going to be targeting anybody this turn, but our Spider Bot will be targeting the Dragon Grounder. And we were weakened by 2, which gave us 3 dexterity to use this turn. We already used 1 to move. We only have 2 left. And we're going to go ahead and roll both of our bot attachments. Going ahead and rolling, we got a 1 on our firing arm, and we got a move on our 5th leg. So we do need to take down the battery power since we have activated the bot by rolling these dice. And the very first thing we're going to resolve is the 1 firing arm. This lets us do 1 damage to a non-adjacent baddie. And we'll go ahead and resolve that against the Orc Rager. Next we have our 5th leg. So that lets us move to any spot on the battle mat. And I'm going to go ahead and move the Spider Bot right into this spot. And then finally, on the Spider Bot's activation, we do get the auto attack, 2 hits against an adjacent baddie, and we'll do those 2 hits against this Orc Rager, taking it out. We've just put those attachments back on our battle mat since they do not exhaust. And that is the end of Tink's turn. We are moving into Gasket's turn now, and Gasket's in a little bit of trouble. At the end of round 2, Gasket's taking 2 true damage and only has 2 HP left, but I think there's something we can do about that. Now, anytime on Gasket's turn, he is able to discard a loot in his possession to turn this power converter up to full. So we're going to go ahead and do that. This last battle stew is being discarded. And then we can use this power converter as a heal. So we will take this down to power, and we'll be able to put 2 HP back on Gasket. So putting 2 HP on Gasket, back up to full health. And Gasket's actually going to use 1 dexterity to move into this spot. Because if you remember on this encounter, the Auget Herbs does 2 true damage to both Gasket and any unit adjacent. So I think it's time to take a risk and put Gasket beside this dragon in order to do damage to both of these. So without doing any damage to this dragon, he's going to take it out this turn with the Auget Herbs, which means we'll be targeting this dragon. So Gasket has 5 dexterity and already used 1 to move, so 4 dice to roll. 1 has to be our Hydro Valve. We're going to roll our maximum of 2 attack dice. And then just to make sure we're doing as much damage as possible, we're going to go ahead and roll the bleed die now that Gasket's target doesn't have a friendly behind it. We're choosing not to roll the Directive Aggro this turn because we really don't want Gasket to end up moving out of the position that he's in, and that is a possibility that we would have to resolve if the foot symbol came back up. And Gasket rolls 2 hits and a bleed against the Dragon Igniter, and a green bone, which we know is a forced resolve. So the 2 hits on this dragon, plus a bleed effect, which we will put up. And since we used a skill that has a hydro symbol, we have to decrease our hydro usage. And then we have to slot this green bone in and resolve our backup plan. So again, hot fix is either going to increase one of our defense dice or add one, and we'll go ahead and increase one. And back over to our battle mat. I neglected to take this initiative die out when we killed the orc, and that means it's the end of round 2, which means that the Augot herbs are going to kick in again. So Gasket's going to take 2 HP of damage, but so is this dragon, which KOs it, as well as this dragon, which is also KO'd, and that means that we have won this battle. Let's go back to the encounter card and see what we have won today. And having won our encounter today, we're going to get 1 progress, 1 loot each, and 2 training points each. Let's resolve the loot first. So Gasket is getting a programmable defibrillator. During battle, this could be used on another KO'd Gearlock to revive them with 3 HP. Or if you are KO'd, you can revive yourself with 2 HP, and then we would permanently reduce the revived Gearlock's health stat by 1. The revived Gearlock rejoins the battle at the end of the round at the top of the initiative meter, but then remembering as well that Gasket's not actually able to use loot. So this will go in his area, but he's not able to use it. Depending on what Tink draws, maybe Gasket will be interested in trading this. And Tink's loot is a sparring weapon. Tink gets to ignore 1 bone on any training attempts going forward. It is permanent, but it's also heavy, and heavy means it takes up 3 of the 4 loot spots. Let's go ahead and reset Gasket's board. So he's going to come back over with his initiative die, and we need to clear out our active slots. We'll go ahead and put our canisters back down so they can go back up with full health for the next battle. And then Gasket is getting 2 training points. So I think the first thing we're going to take is another dexterity. And then secondly, Gasket is going to take another skill, and that's going to be the Blitz skill. We can see that this die has 1 bone on it. It has 3 1s and 2 2s. The number is how much damage it does to an adjacent unit. And then any units adjacent to that unit takes the number -1. So if Gasket rolls a 2, then the unit adjacent would take 2 damage, and then a unit adjacent to that unit takes 1 damage. It can't affect Gasket, but it can affect other Gearlocks, so we'll need to be a little bit careful with that. And then also noting that it does have the Hydro symbol on it. All of the dice in the Derail and the Destroy families have that symbol, and that is one of the reasons why we have so much Hydro put up right now. Let's go ahead and reset Tink as well, getting our bots back in their spots, and Tink back over on the board. There we go. And Tink also has 2 training points. We are going to attempt to increase Tink's defense. Now remember, we do need to do a training attempt for that, but Tink currently has the sparring weapon, which means we can ignore 1 bone on that attempt. Tink's current defense stat is 2, so that's how many defense dice we need to roll. And we did roll 1 bone, which normally we would have to re-roll, but our sparring weapon lets us ignore it. So we have successfully increased our defense stat, and I think second, Tink is going to increase our dexterity as well. And the last thing today's encounter is giving us is a progress point. So we now have 6 of the 8 progress we need in order to face Gendrix. Now it is the end of the day, and we'll go through our end of the day routine. We don't have any trove loot to unlock, but our Gearlocks are going to trade some loot. So Tink is going to go ahead and give this sparring weapon to Gasket. And of course, Gasket can't use it. But Gasket in return is going to give Tink the programmable defibrillator, which I think that is going to be a really good plan B if Gasket gets KO'd. Last but not least, we have our individual options, and Tink, being down to 2 out of 5 health, is going to rest and recover. We're going back up to a full 5. And Gasket, being down to 2 out of 4, is going to do the same. So our Gearlocks are rested and ready for another adventure. And that actually brings us to the end of day 6. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you soon for day 7.